Welcome back to Molon Lave Wargaming. This is War on the Pacific Admirals Edition, a play-by-email campaign playing as Japan in Scenario 1. We are now setting up the December 15th, 1941 turn. Where we left off, we had a turn with quite a bit of attrition on the enemy side. We sank a transport convoy near the Gilbert Islands with the Kido Butai. In addition to that, our submarines continued to pick off stray cargo ships, mostly light cargo ships, and we shot down a decent amount of fighters too. We're also having some issues persisting with maintaining fighter escorts in Luzon in particular. So the theme for this turn is going to kind of be a little bit of recovery, a little bit of reorganization, a little bit of rest. So we'll be seeing that theme throughout. Getting into the regions, over in China, in the north, we were stopped by the enemy over in this hex next to Patao. We don't have enough to take this hex currently, but the enemy is retreating, which is a good sign. He knows there's more coming, and he's right. We do have another regiment that's arrived, so they've been assigned to go ahead and reinforce the unit that failed to dislodge them last turn. So we should start to see some movement along that line soon. We're not quite ready to do anything down here in the Kaifeng area. I want to dislodge this unit in the middle. We're using divisions that have reinforced them. So if we've got the 1/10th here, it's finished unpacking, so it can now start its regular move. And then once we clear that out, since I don't want to spend 3 days unpacking this other division, the 37th, they'll go ahead and use the rail to move to Kaifeng, and they'll unpack there next turn. Of course, we can't go around the long way because we still have this enemy unit sitting on the rail line that approaches from the east. Dealing with them, we have the 32nd Division coming up the road. Right behind them is the 36th Division. I'd like the 10th Independent Mix to be behind them, but the regular garrison forces currently showing at 52 and 25 are not going to be enough to provide the 100 assault strength needed to garrison this space, so they're going to be holding off for a little bit. Got one unit in contact over here, so that'll be a battle. There should have been a battle here this turn, but the enemy units managed to escape across the river. So the new target for the 13th Division is just going to be these guys over here on the road to Nanyang. In the coastal area, we have units advancing from both Hangzhou and Shaoxing towards Chuxin. We won a battle over here south of Nanchang. We're going to push on to, I think this is probably the same unit that was defeated, so we're going to keep harassing them, and then we can have these guys meet over at Pucheng, and then hopefully between having a division here and having a division here, 2 divisions will be enough to take both of these. I remember when Chao was a problem as the last campaign was prematurely ending, so keeping an eye on that. Hong Kong, I've decided we're going to rest. Fatigue and disruption isn't that bad. It's pretty moderate, but considering that we've had a number of squads disabled, but we have a headquarters unit in Hex to help them recover. Well, meanwhile, the enemy is suffering a whole lot of squad destruction rather than squad disablements. I'd just rather bring a few online and see if we do any better. So, over in Rangoon, our recon sweeps have revealed that the AVG is very, very much here. 78 fighters is going to be a lot to deal with, so hopefully any intercepts that we have are going to be outside of Rangoon proper. That supply shortage at Bangkok is preventing me from using drop tanks on my Zeros, which means for the moment, if my Nels are going to go on any sort of attack raid, they're restricted to just 9 hexes so that they'll have a fighter escort. And for the moment, that fighter escort really is inadequate. So something that's going to happen in order to truly deal with Rangoon is I'm going to need a significant fighter presence over in Bangkok. Probably be a pretty significant air campaign to weaken the AVG at Rangoon in the near future. And for that to happen, we basically need to free up a lot of the fighters that are needed in Malaya. For the moment, the major task for the fighters is just protecting these forces here in Mersing. So as the Mersing landings finish up, those fighters might be free for other assignments. So possibly rebasing to Bangkok is one possible mission. Of course, we still have Palembang to deal with, so we'll see. As for Malaya, everything going on here is fairly straightforward. We have lead elements that we don't want to escape, plus the guys that are in contact here that managed to hold off an attack from my units. So that's where the bombers are going to be attacking. So basically here, I think I probably assigned some to Aelor Star, probably. But here, Aelor Star, and possibly... no, I don't think I hit Temelo yet. Yeah, it would have been those guys. Okay, so I'm not hitting Temelo this turn, but they're going to in future turns because we're going to have a river crossing coming up, so I want to have them softened up. We've got a little bit more armor being delivered to Mersing, so these guys are carrying a tank regiment, and here's a armored car regiment following that up. So we're not quite done landing in Mersing. That said, the 5th Recon Regiment has already advanced down the road and has severed the rail lines. Now, of course, one Recon Regiment isn't going to be enough to hold this. Got an unknown number of enemy troops here in Malacca, and 15 units, including 13,000 troops, present in Johor Bahru. So, something we need to keep an eye on. For now, I have one of my infantry regiments that's going to be advancing into that hex to protect that armored unit, so hopefully we'll be able to hold them a little bit longer. But you can see the importance of moving in additional armor. At Kota Bharu, we've repaired all the runway and service damage, and we have extra aviation support that's moving down from Singora. So we're going to be able to start basing pretty much all the Indochina bombers that we want to move here into Kota Bharu soon, although I'm expecting I'm going to rebase some of those to Luzon once we get an air base at Luzon up to level 4. The 3rd Air Division is loaded up and on the way to Kuantan. So that's going to end up being a fairly major base too. Having the Air Division arrive will cure the shortfall of aviation support, and this will eventually be a base for naval bombers coming up. So that's going to extend our reach well far south and make sure that nobody's going through the Strait of Malacca anymore. That, of course, is going to be a relatively temporary move, because we're building up our base in Kuching, which is where I really want my more southern bomber deployments to be. But again, once that's set up, then I'll have even more bombers available to go up to Bangkok to help shut down Rangoon. Speaking of building up Kuching, I've got an additional Army Air Force base force landing along with an airfield construction battalion. So they're halfway to level 3, and hopefully that rate that they're building is going to be accelerating very soon. Sarawak, we should be ready to take Beaufort. Mindanao, we're getting close to Cagayan. I strongly suspect the aircraft here, the P-40s here, have been rebased due to the lack of casualties and lack of any cap last turn. So my best guess, they're either in Iloilo or Cebu. to try to deal with that, I've got a pair of recon aircraft that have been moved to Kotabo, so they're going to start scoping out those bases and see what we can see. I've also moved base aircraft, or recon aircraft, down to Minato, so they're going to start taking peeks at Kandari, Ambon, and such. Both Carrier Division 2 and the Baby KB are ordered back to Babel Doab to rearm and replenish their aircraft numbers. As I mentioned, theme of rest and recovery, we're going to be getting ready for that push towards Darwin and Surabaya that I mentioned on a prior turn. Luzon's a little interesting. I was thinking I wanted the, what is this? This probably the 16th Division, to go over and hit Batangas right away to prevent these units from retreating to Manila. And I'm like, no, that's actually a horrible idea, because I would rather have a valid base from which Manila could retreat, or to which Manila could retreat, than prevent these guys from getting to Manila. If they want to go to Manila, that's just fine by me. So my main force, as tempting as Iba was, because there might be aircraft there that I could still finish off, I think the stronger move is to go straight to Cabantuan, and then they're going to go to Manila. And then after we take Manila down, then we can go ahead and back up and take the rest of these bases. But what I really would want is to at least create the opportunity for these guys to retreat to Batangas instead of to Clark, because the more consolidated they get, then the harder of a fight that I'm going to have at Clark and possibly Bataan. Another nice benefit is once I get here, and I'm having all these units move independently, I can just have the tanks race up the major road to encircle and eliminate these two units that are sitting with my paratroopers but haven't engaged yet. So, just a little thing I can do to take care of that. San Fernando, we want to become our major base, so it's already pretty well supplied. We've got aviation support there. Moved in 2 of the 0 groups so far. Hopefully that's not going to disrupt too much. And then we've got, looks like 4 engineering units present for the moment. So, having eliminated the minesweeper, our surface groups are returning to their respective bases, Katori back to the Marshals, and the Wake cover forces moving back to Wake. Fuel's becoming a bit of a problem here. We didn't really bring any fuel to deliver to Wake, and Wake didn't have any of its own, or any of its own that it did have we've already used. So I have dispatched a small cargo task force to deliver some fuel to Wake. I don't know if it's going to do these ships any good, so they may not be going straight to Guam when they reform. They may be taking a detour to Quaj or to Truck to get restocked. Moving on to New Britain and the Solomons, we're ready to attack Rabaul. Numbers are looking pretty good. They've got a token force, I'd say. We've got 2 SNLF units, should be enough. We've landed at Shortlands, and our invasion of Tulagi is ready to depart Nauru Island this turn. And at long last, the Kido Butai has arrived in the region, so we do have covering forces if we need it. Their immediate priority, like pretty much everybody else, is to get rearmed and refueled. So for now they're headed to Truck, but they're in theater and able to respond to anything within a day or 2. Alright, so before I close things out, just a closing thought on this. Part of the reason I'm a little bit focused on rest and recovery right now is the absence of any major pushback, really anywhere, in particular by enemy naval forces, but even to some degree by their air forces. It's coming. Basically, the point of holding back like this is to be able to make a push in force at some point in the future. We haven't seen anything, and I think I may have burned him pretty bad by landing in Mersing the way I did. And he's probably watching me advance in several areas and looking for a chance to hit me back. So all I'm saying for the moment is I need to be ready for it. In particular, I'm expecting Force Z and what's left of ABDA, which is actually pretty substantial. We got the Houston and the Boise, but I know the Marblehead's still out there, along with a whole bunch of other American destroyers. So between Force Z and those American destroyers, they can put a pretty good surface task force together in ABDA. And since they haven't overused a whole lot of aircraft, if I decide to push too far, those surface forces might have substantial fighter cover from land bases. Just something to think about. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out the turn, and we'll see you for the combat replay. Thank you for watching. Combat replay for December 15th, now in progress. Ooh, there's a minefield at Rabaul. Did not detect that previously. Let's get him this time. Got a real destroyer doing it instead of one of the PBs. Still no. Another opportunity for a destroyer versus a sub. This is the bomb-damaged Horatio that picked him up. Landed at Sinkawang. I actually wonder if I should try to encircle the forces at Sambas now. What a waste of torpedoes. I'm just going to skip to the end of this. Not like we don't know what's going to happen. Oh, yes! Oh, just one hit, unfortunately. You know, if we can cut somebody off from them getting the pearl, though. Yeah, I'd love to finish her off. Although no troop casualties reported, so perhaps not as good of a prize as she could have been. Four ships just spotted at Rangoon. That's concerning. May have to get more zeros up to Bangkok sooner rather than later. Happy to see that my Bettys have escorts today. How about that? I think we just finished off 3 submarines. Yep. So that was a great strike. 2 P-40s dead along with 3 subs. Hard to complain about that outcome. I don't think there's anything left in the port to hit. Alright, these guys are going after the airbase. Only destroying seagulls. Punishing this group of enemy units pretty hard for failing to surrender or retreat last battle. Oof, 5 squads destroyed at Taiping, near Taiping. Unfortunately, these bombers are going to get a hit eventually. As I was saying. Oof, and that did quite a bit of damage too. 3 squads destroyed, and since they're on fire, it might only get worse. Now, at least over here we have a little bit of a cap, so the bombers don't get to try over and over again. Too bad, no casualties reported. Sounds like he just sank. Alright, another weakened core. Lots of casualties. Beaufort doesn't look like it can offer any resistance.
Greetings, everybody. How's tricks? This is Orphan Anne from Radio Tokyo, saying hello to all of her dog faces and boneheads wandering the Pacific Islands. Before we start the music, the Japanese High Command announced today that the ever-victorious forces of the Japanese Empire have captured Rabaul.
I'm taking note that there are no aircraft reported destroyed, so if the Hudsons were coming from here, they've been rebased, probably to Port Moresby. Enemy artillery attack only damages themselves. Well, I was saying this was going to be kind of a rest and recovery turn, and it did end up being pretty uneventful, which is a good thing for me. We still have decent point gains for the turn, even exceeding yesterday's. I'm going to blame that on a bunch of enemy submarines going down, and the capture of Rabaul was probably worth a few points, too. Air loss is nothing to really write home about. We lost one, we both lost three. Our losses spread between air, flak, and ops, while their losses were a bit more air-to-air, since they lost 2 fighters to our zeros. Who did we lose to flak? Recon aircraft to flak, yeah. It happens. Ship loss is pretty light. Just those 3 submarines at Manila, really, and then plus we picked off an AKL. Putting a torpedo into the side of the Queen Elizabeth is a pretty big deal, but of course it didn't even have heavy damage reported, so we have no reason to believe that's going to sink. So I'm going to do an abbreviated version of the theater-by-theater summary just because this was a fairly uneventful turn. So just real quick going down the list. China, all that really happened there was we routed an enemy corps and caused some casualties. Hong Kong, we're resting, so that's kind of the major front line right now, but nothing happening there. Malaya, we've got those Dutch subs poking around. Captured Beaufort, we've landed at Sinkawang. And over near Sinkawang there was an enemy air attack that we fought off with our Nate cap. Down to the Philippines, we picked off an AKL in Celebes. Most important event of the turn was the airstrike at Manila that finished off 3 submarines. So we have at most 1 sub that's left in the base. Everything else has either been sunk or has been evacuated. The Dutch East Indies, Hudson bombers, which I didn't suspect during the replay, but now that I'm looking at it afterwards, those probably came from Rabaul, because they were Hudsons instead of those Dutch bombers. But anyway, they bombed the amphibious ready group that was approaching Ternate to deliver aviation support and scored a hit, so that caused some ground casualties. And the Solomons, we captured Rabaul, and then finally at Hawaii we torpedoed the Queen Elizabeth, although that passenger liner is expected to have survived that because it was not reported on fire or with heavy damage. All right, so that'll do it. We'll see you for the next turn. Thanks for watching.